The Taliban said today they have taken control of the last resisting province in Afghanistan, but the opposition fighters said they will keep up the struggle. What does it mean for the Taliban? And the origins of COVID-19 continue to be elusive despite conspiracy theories. Where should people look next? My exclusive interview with the Dean of the Yale School of Public Health, Professor Stan Vermond. Welcome to The Point, an opinion show coming to you live from Beijing. I'm Li Xin. The last province that eluded control of the Taliban in Afghanistan, Panjshir in the north, has fallen. Taliban spokesperson Zabihullah Mujahid said at a press conference on Monday. However, the National Resistance Front, or NRF, that had been resisting the Taliban there, said they will continue to fight and their leaders have been moved to safe locations. Do the Taliban have finally control of the entire country? Will it be able to restore peace and address the looming humanitarian crisis, or will Panjshir create an unhealable wound that might see new counterattacks by the NRF? Joining me today are Professor Wang Jin of the Northwest University of China, from Xi'an in northwest China, and Ahmad Shah Mohibi, founder of Rise to Peace, a Washington-based NGO working to address terrorism through education. He's also a former counterterrorism advisor to the U.S. government in Afghanistan and is speaking from Washington, D.C. Gentlemen, welcome to The Point. So as I said, Zabihullah Mujahid announced that the Taliban have gained control of the last resisting province, Panjshir, at a presser in Kabul today. He said, with this victory, our country is completely taken out of the quagmire of war. He also said the Islamic Emirate is very sensitive about insurgencies. Anyone who tries to start an insurgency will be hit hard. We will not allow another. Professor Wang, do we know for sure that the Taliban have finally gained control of the entire country? Because there is a video as well of the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan's flag being hoisted in front of what seems to be a government building in Panjshir. So what would officially signal the takeover beside the official claim?
I think, as you are right, Liu Xin, there is still a lot of discussions about whether or not the Afghan Taliban has already taken control of the whole country, because there were still some kind of conflicts or skirmishes in some certain areas between Afghan Taliban forces and the local resistance forces. And meanwhile, we have to know that in some provinces, in some cities, there was still some kind of skirmishes or possible confrontations in the future between Afghan Taliban and ISIS-K, or the Daesh Khorasan branch in Afghanistan. So we have to say that there were still uncertainties. There were still possibilities of the conflict. But if we look at what is happening in Panjshir, actually that the Afghan Taliban has already won the battle, and the military victory will turn the Panjshir into the controlling area of the Afghan Taliban. And I mean, the organized resistance of the local military forces there has already been defeated. So I think it is a very major step that made by Afghan Taliban forward to control the whole country, and this is a very important step that I think it will very important for the Afghan Taliban-dominated government formation process in the future.
Yeah. Mr. Mohibi, the opposition forces, the NRF, have claimed that the Taliban claim is false and they will continue the fighting. What do you think is the message that they're trying to send? And do you foresee the NRF continuing opposition from other places?
Well, what the professor, you and me in Washington, D.C., elsewhere are hearing is from the Taliban. Telecommunications, internet services, everything has been blocked on Panjshir resistant forces. So the capital of Panjshir, yes, it was taken by the Taliban, but moments ago I got reports that it's been retaken by the Panjshir, by the resistant force of Afghanistan. So Panjshir has many valleys by itself. It's high mountains, altitudes, Hindu Kush mountains. It was formed, by near like Himalayas mountains, and it's really hard terrain. So still there is fighting happening. There's still resistance happening in Panjshir. And about an hour ago, Ahmad Massoud, the leader of the resistance forces, asked the entire Afghanistan and the world to rise against extremism, rise against terrorism, and support his cause. We see some movements, we see people are supporting his cause, but at the moment, what we see on internet, what we see on Facebook, Twitter, all other platforms, is the news the Taliban are feeding you. So if the Taliban are really about fairness, social justice, first they have to stop killing their own brothers and sisters in Panjshir. The Taliban for the past 20 years, they have been claiming that our war against the American, our war is against infidels or occupiers, but why they're attacking Panjshir? Why they're killing their own Muslims? So at the same time, it's a humanitarian crisis. It's against the Geneva Convention, it's against international laws. You block food, you block water, you block internet, you block every single thing. So Panjshir right now doesn't have a voice, while the Taliban have censored them. So what we see right now, it's too early to decide whether Taliban has full control or not. You know, Afghanistan,
okay.
even it's a small spot.
Yeah. Professor Wang, what's your reaction to what Mr. Mohibi had just alluded to, the situation?
I think Mr. Mohibi is very right that actually the war is not a thing that expected by everybody, including especially it's not the very thing that expected by Afghan people, because the war only make the people the suffering victims of in the conflicts, in the crisis. So in the wars, there were the traditional hatred, I mean, between the Afghan Taliban and Tajik people and the Afghan Taliban and other minority groups, and between Afghan Taliban and other the religions and sectarian blocs inside Afghanistan. So this is a very problem that even that if the Afghan Taliban, if they took the power, if they dominated the government in the future, they have to find a way out to help to bridge the gap between the different the ethnic groups and the different sectarian religious groups, and to make the people and make the country unite again. So I think this is this is the thing that I think that international society encourage Afghan Taliban to do, and this is the thing that international society is trying to help Afghan people to do. So there were maybe some kind of the stories, or there is kind of reports, but we all hope that the Afghan people can unite again, and the Taliban can do the right choice and to help to bridge the gaps between the different blocs, different ethnic groups, and different religious groups together to make the world, to make the country move forward again. Liu.
So what does the Northern resistance force want in their fighting? Because by and large, the great majority of the country have fallen in the hands, have been taken over by the Taliban. What are their aspirations, and to what point will they be fighting? Because after all, in whichever way people fight, there will be bloodshed, there will be victims, and the country will not have peace. Mr. Mohibi.
Well, let's look back. Let's go back a little bit. A couple of months ago, weeks ago, Afghans did not want Taliban. Taliban slaughtered thousands of Afghans in Afghanistan in the past 20 years. One of the most horrible suicide bombings in Kabul. So Afghans did not want that. So the former Afghan President Ashraf Ghani, when he fled the country, when the United States troops left Afghanistan, when the international community abandoned Afghanistan, it was a time that those who did not want to surrender, those who did not want to get executed at night by the Taliban, had no option but to go to Panjshir and to just prepare to die or defend from the people. What the resistance force of Afghanistan wants, let's not forget about this. It's not only people from Panjshir, it's not only Tajiks, it's many other ethnic groups with them right now fighting. The Taliban, the execution have its own history. And if you look back 1990s until this day, the Taliban have been always about the power. They did not want to fight about Islam. They used Islam to justify their actions. What the resistant forces and other ethnic groups in Afghanistan wants is an inclusive government. Inclusiveness of power sharing, the rights of their people, their identity to the world, not to a small ethnic group to rule over Afghanistan or a group to like the Taliban. So do you want to make peace? Ahmad Massoud, he offered to negotiate with the Taliban, but the Taliban have to stop massacring people. It's a genocide happening in Panjshir right now. We didn't
Okay,
have
that's a
service.
very
We didn't know
serious
what's
accusation,
happening.
Mr. Mohibi. That's a very serious accusation, and I would always...
It's not accusation, it's a fact. It's a fact. It's a fact. Look, there's Air Force bombing.
I would always, because there are people who say this kind of thing sometimes a little bit too easily. I'm not saying, you know...
It's not too easily. Look, I'm talking about history. I'm talking about reports.
Mr. Mohibi,
It's
I'm
not
not trying to
accusation,
engage
ma'am,
you
okay?
into a debate
The
at this
whole
moment.
communication
Mr. Mohibi,
is
can
blocked.
I have the right to speak for just a moment? I'm not trying to defend anybody. I'm not.
Sure.
I'm just saying when it comes to such a
neither me. I'm just trying to give the
I'm
people
just
the right answer
saying,
they need to know.
when there's a very serious accusation being leveled somewhere, it has to be we have to be very careful about it. What is happening in Panjshir?
It seems you're defending the Taliban.
I think
the way you're phrasing it, you're defending.
Before we make any big accusation, before we levy any big names,
there's no
we have
big,
to be
ma'am.
very
It's a reality.
careful.
Afghans are dying.
Mr. Professor Wang, what is your reaction?
I think that, as always, we say that if we look at the history of Afghanistan, as just my friend from United States maintained that, yes, there was a lot of the civilians, they died in the war, they died in the hatred, killing, they died in the conflict escalation. But we have to know that the people's, not only the Afghan Taliban that killed the people, but also the major military local blocs, they also killed the people. They also killed the soldiers who surrendered. If you look at the wars over the competing for the control over the capital city of the Kabul from 1992 to 1996, they were we have to know before the wars over the capital city of the Kabul, there were 2 million people there, but just 4 years later, there were just about 500,000 people there, because most of the people, they have to flee, most of the people, they have to go away, they have to displace, and many of them also be killed by the different rivalry groups in Afghanistan. So, I mean, if we look at the history, it's not just the problem who killed whom, but actually it's the problem that there was no unified government, there was no unified authority, and especially the central authority in Afghanistan, that lead to the escalation of crisis, lead to the escalation of uncertainties, then lead to the deaths of the people. So the people, they suffered from war, they suffered from the conflicts. So this is the way I think the international society, including China, we always hope to encourage the different parties inside Afghanistan to unite together, to sit down, to solve the problems through the dialogue, and not to solve the problem on the battlefield.
What has been the role of foreign intervention here? Because over the past year, we've had the American troops on the ground as well, and hundreds of thousands of civilians have perished as a result of so-called collateral damage. Professor Wang.
Unfortunately, I mean, most of the foreign interventions actually further escalated the confrontation inside Afghanistan, further enhanced the hatred of different groups inside Afghanistan, and further increased the dangers and the instabilities inside Afghanistan. So that is why, on the one hand, Afghan people, they have to reconsider, we have to rethink about the future of their country, and on the other hand, the international society, especially the consensus, should be reached. That is why China called for the principle of the very important principle for Afghanistan issue. That is, Afghan people learn, Afghan people owned.
All right, we have to leave it there. Many thanks to my guests, Professor Wang Jin and Ahmad Shah Mohibi, joining us from different parts of the world. It's time for a break, but we'll be back with my exclusive interview with the Dean of the Yale School of Public Health on his thoughts of COVID-19 origins. Stay with us.